What I have learned over the past week or two is that engagement farming is real in our modern techno-feudalist world. And it comes down to the fact that yes, you can farm likes and gain followers, but I feel like that's more the fruits of your labor, whereas the majority of the things you'll be farming or clearing out are the weeds or the bots, right? And that's basically what I'm going to go through today, is going to be doing a lot of weeding through the comments, trying to find some intellectual ones or some that actually have some content worth talking about, or going more in depth with some of the points or conversations, and then also showing people how much of modern social media is just bots, and how it seems like the dead internet theory is becoming more real every day. So in this video, I'm going to be going through some of the content I've been posting over the last week or two, and going through a bunch of the comments because I have been getting a lot. So I've taken some screenshots of my analytics. I would pull them up on the desktop version of Instagram, but it doesn't seem to show them like on the mobile version. It has a dashboard, but it seems like it's only for ads that you run. And since I'm not running any ads, it's all organic posting and content. I guess it doesn't show the content analytics on dashboard Instagram. So I've taken a few screenshots and I'll post them on the screen so we can look through it together here. But as you can see, I have been getting a lot of engagement recently. Most of it is from non-followers. You can see the top countries are the United States, and then petering off to Canada, the UK, and Australia. And then lots of profile engagement, which I am very thankful for. This is what I've been looking for, basically, is trying to post content that gets people's attention and tries to get them thinking about life from a different perspective, or, looking at life in a different, maybe more philosophical way, right? But like I said, it's unfortunate how many bots are interacting with my profile. Like I said in a comment on one of the recent things that I posted, it could both be literal bots from a bot farm with accounts that have no or barely any followers, following a few people but then have no post, no profile picture, and then the name isn't even somebody's real name. Some accounts even have a few posts, a few followers and following, but then that just shows how people have bot thinking even if they are real people, you know what I mean? So this video is actually going to be edited together of a few different recording sessions going through the comments, because I had been working the past few nights. I haven't had too much time to record, but now I finally have a day off, so this will be the last recording I do, and then I can start editing everything together. So that being said, I hope you enjoy this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoy it, leave a like, and let's hop right into it. Alright, hey. I'm Aqua, or Aquarius of Fallen Snow if you don't know me. Welcome to my channel if you haven't been here before. If you have, welcome back. Happy to have you here again. So in this video, I'm just going to do a quick recording. It's 9:20 right now. I have to go to work tonight. My shift starts at 11. But I thought I'd take a bit of time to do a long form video to respond to some Instagram comments, because I've been getting a lot of them lately. If you follow me on Instagram at Aqua.ofs, same as my YouTube, then you might have seen that I've been doing some engagement farming lately. And basically what that means is just posting a bunch of my own original videos, either replying to comments or just thoughts off the top of my head, as well as reposting videos. And currently my account is sitting at 130,000 views, which is crazy. I don't think I've ever had this much interaction or views on my account. And I've gone from just under 160 to 194 followers, so it seems to be helping with engagement and gaining new followers and traction. But there's also been a lot of comments that I feel like are just pushing ego, ignorance, arrogance. So I kind of wanted to go through some of them here and give you some of my thoughts and be able to speak on them more in depthly, because even on Instagram I can only do minute-long videos, so it doesn't really help for truly getting into the ideas more in depthly, right? Alright, so here's my Instagram, and I'll scroll through some of the reels and my content to show you the videos beforehand, and then we can go through the comments of each reel individually, right? And I'll even scroll back a bit to go from the older content to newer stuff. And I would say this video is really the one that started the traction.
Upholding fascism today, boys?
Absolutely.
Good job. Upholding fascism today, boys?
Absolutely.
Good job.
It makes me laugh every time. I even said in the caption here, absolutely. What the fuck? Whether he meant to or not, they said the quiet part out loud. It honestly gets funnier every time I watch it. Peep my page for more. And even Gugu here, who I've been talking to recently, I highly suggest checking out his page. He's an indigenous artist and he's been making a lot of great reels and music lately. So I like to promote his page here to try and help him out with finding more stable living in Las Vegas. So shout out to the homie, definitely go check out his page. But now let's go through some of the comments. You can see I replied to some. This person said L Ragebait. I thought it was funny. You've done it. No, you. I was trying to reply to some comments accurate. So I like that. I know it's sarcasm, but his supervisor's not going to hear the end of it. You know, I replied with, man, supervisor's going to say, look, you can't just tell people we're upholding fascism. Come on. We do that shit behind closed doors at the rallies with the white pointy hats. You know, like, a lot of these guys are part of those organizations, so you gotta be careful, right? And somebody tried to say I have no idea what fascism is, even though I go through videos breaking it down. Somebody said he was a Mossad. Somebody said they're a Mossad agent. Yeah, and as you can see, this is just a meme account, so they're basically a bot. But yeah, so that was the start of the traction. But there's a few videos recently. You can see this Aiden Ross video got a lot of views and interactions. But some of the comments that I've been getting and replying to are crazy. Like, this one I was just acting confused because I didn't really understand. And I said, so fascism can only be linked to one person or one side of identity politics. I don't even know what point bro's trying to make, because obviously he doesn't know what it means. And then this person, obviously a bot account. Yeah, so I try not to engage with bot accounts too much. I'm sure I have on my recent stuff without checking the profiles. But as you can see, most of them, especially if they don't have a profile picture, even a lot of the ones that do, you're going to see a privated account, no post, barely any followers or following. You might see like max 30 of either one, but yeah, it's pretty obvious to see. And then they just try doing rage bait stuff. So I have been blocking a lot of those kind of people. But then as you can see, I was replying to another comment on that original reel with the cops. You made a dumb comment and they gave you a dumb response, this person says, and I just said Uno reverse. Gotta love irony, right? And I have responded like that a few times, but it's because I genuinely find some of these comments like hilarious. The irony of them is just crazy. And who knows, maybe a lot of these comments that I've been replying to are actually just bot accounts, right? So as you can see, I've been answering comments and I think I have a lot of reels that make good points. As you can see here, I break down fascism, so we can watch that one quickly. I guess you don't know nationalism is part of fascism. Nice. It's literally the first, like, ultranationalism is the first fucking thing in the definition, buddy. What are you talking about, man? Oh, and look at what else perfectly fits the states. And then as you can see, the person that I replied to didn't answer, but a different account did. What did I say for the caption? Let's break it down since people have no critical thinking skills. This definitely fits most of the world's countries, whether they be capitalist, communist, or something else. Whether they be capitalist, communist, a mix, or something else. When you go into the etymology, it comes from a small group of people who control the masses, which use symbolism of a bundle of sticks wrapped together with an axe, and that symbol can be found across the world, notably at Abraham Lincoln's memorial in the States. Hope this helps educate. Google is free, you know? And somebody tried to reply saying our leader is democratically elected and this country is not authoritarian in the slightest. No other country has a better justice system. I'll make a part 2. Hate that it only gives me a minute per reply bid. So you can see NAFA here. I started replying to them instead of this person. But yeah, I made a part 2 and they're kind of, the order of the reels are a little messed up. Sure, you can say that, but why does it come down to only 2, or in Canada usually 4 at the end, individuals to choose from? Why are people not able to vote on every decision, truly making the government democratic in our decision-making process, and not just in our election process? Because what does democracy matter if you're just picking the person in power to make the decisions for you, right? And here's the definition for authoritarianism, which I don't think you can say it's not in the slightest. And then let's look at countries with the best legal system. Look at that. I guess you make number 4 on this list, but that's tough, man. One more thing. I think this fits a lot better than this. You know what I mean? At the end there, I was talking about definitions between different forms of governance, right? Oh, and then some of them might have been removed. Because I think I did end up blocking people that, just weren't making any sense, were just wanting to argue and not giving any points with it, right? They seem like they have a real enough profile, and I know this person, but we were kind of arguing and not seeing eye to eye on stuff, but Jazz said because that's seemingly what most people want, which I disagree with, and then I looked into the spoiler effect, but I don't know if it really applies necessarily. And you're so mature, it's breathtaking. And then you get comments like this, what is the point? I just said thanks for the comment and the engagement. Like, this is the ego and arrogance that I was talking about, the ignorance. They don't even mention the content, and then if you try to reply to their comment with logic or facts, it just keeps going down either a rabbit hole of this or a rabbit hole of their own cognitive bias and cognitive dissonance, So this is the part 2 to one of the reels that I just made, but let's keep going through some definitions, right? As you can see, pretty shitty definition for government, because I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to use the word in the definition of itself, which governing would be the same as government, because it's governance, right? It all comes from the same fucking roots, which you can see over here. It's Old French and English. But let's look at the etymology then, basically going back to control, direction, administration. And I swear I remember the definition of government used to be a group of people that serves or represents the people, right? Group of people that works for the people. Which, when we look at dictator, there is a bit of overlap there, the person in control with the power telling people what to do. Or a dictator, a ruler with total power over a country. Which doesn't that seem to be what happens when we democratically elect these leaders in power? Which I think I messed up wording there at the end, but I think when you actually look at these definitions, the points I'm trying to make sense, because it doesn't feel like we live in a democracy. It doesn't feel like we truly have democratic voting power as people. We're just choosing who is our dictator for however many years, Even if they have a whole cabinet that goes with them, at the end of the day, they would still make the decisions, right? And then if the party or cabinet doesn't like the decisions that person is making, then they kick them out as the leader of the leader position, right? But let's keep going. So continuing to go through definitions, this will be the part 3 now. This is why I like pathocracy so much, because it basically perfectly explains what's going on in our modern society. People with personality traits, or signs of them, like narcissism, psychopathy, and sociopathy, are basically the only ones who want the power and control the most. And it's basically like a filter that filters out all the worst ones to get to the top, where everybody else falls to the bottom who actually has empathy and compassion for others, right? And it leads into authoritarianism, where they want obedience and they're enforcing their power, right? And then going back to government, if we're democratically electing these people, usually just individuals who lead parties or other groups of people, there becomes a certain level of redundancy, doesn't there? And I'm going through these to show you, I kind of know what I'm talking about, especially when I look through the definitions and I'm comparing words in different forms of governance, because most people don't even do that, right? Alright, part 4 now. Again, why do we not have the power as people to democratically vote on every major issue that comes up, not just who is in power? And you can say that, oh, we're electing the leader of a party and that party is in power and they democratically argue back and forth with the other parties to make things happen, right? Ideally, that's how it should work, and I agree. But then why does social media and all these people only put their attention onto the people who lead the parties, right? Maybe because they're the most important, right? As well as why do people seemingly not want to engage or be open to other points of view? And even if they say they are, they don't want to take on or encourage other traits or other ways of life, right? So that's why I say our democratic system is a bit redundant, because it ends up leading to power vacuums and having the power flow upwards to these pathocratic fascists, basically, small groups of people running the rest of people. And then it leads to ultranationalism, militarism, so they can keep their power, right? Part 5 now. With fascism, it's not just one side or another, it's not just one person. We have to look at the whole system. All of these people in the different parties that we can elect are all buddies behind the scene because they're all rich as fuck. It's this elite ruling class where they get into it from lobbying or nepotism. Because we can agree, very rarely do average people suddenly just hop up and get into office legitimately. As we can see with Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party when they were in power recently, before Mark Carney got elected, where they were padding their pockets with things like SNC-Lavalin, that I'm pretty sure they were basically laundering money through or help commit fraud and crimes. There was the Phoenix pay system, and then the Arrive Can that people called the Arrive Scam. Two things that were said to supposedly help society for not very much money. I think Arrive Can was supposed to help people arriving to Canada, help making the process going through the airport easier, more simplified, and it was only supposed to cost like $8,000, so they estimated, right? And then it ended up coming out to tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars for this like simple app program. And then there was a whole bunch of scandalous articles that came out about Trudeau funneling money back to his family, basically. Like, I think it was his mom or his grandma or something like that. But yeah, it just seems to happen over and over again, and especially with someone like Trudeau, he never answered a question honestly. He just kept dodging or saying like, oh, well, our party is doing great, whatever, whatever. It's like, no, answer the questions, man. But no politician ever does. They're all scummy. The whole point of politics is to convince people to have faith in you and your abilities or the party's abilities. And then once you have that power, you can do whatever you want with it. You can manipulate it or abuse it however you want. And that's the problem that I see with the system, right? And I guess part 6 now for good measure. Because I missed democracy earlier, let's look at it now. System of government by the whole population for the eligible members of the state, typically through election. Okay. You see the part where it says by the whole population? Why are we not focusing on that more? You know what I mean? And let's go back to the root of it, right? People and power or rule, right? So it's either the people collectively have the power, or there are small groups of people with the power, right? So if you want to say ideally, yes, the people have the power to choose who's in power of them, but the people don't have the power to make decisions on every major issue like we should, in my opinion. I feel like that would be true democracy. What we have is like democratic dictatorship, basically, or authoritarianism, but pathocracy still. Right, so looking through those reels, you can see some of my thinking and how I go about analyzing these issues, right? They'll cover a few more comment replies, and then it is 9:50, so I'm gonna have to start getting ready for work soon, but I might continue recording this tomorrow and stitch some videos together, right? Unfortunately, I disagree with this because I think it is the system that has been put in place for us, but I don't think people actively think about the systems they participate in or have enough critical thinking to think about their own thoughts to think, oh, is this something I genuinely want to do with my life and my time? Or do they just go through the motions of doing shit without truly thinking about it on a deeper level? Because most people I talk to don't seem to enjoy the system that we have, and they understand that it doesn't work for the people or it doesn't work how it should. So why should we not try to focus on solutions or looking at the problems with the current system and trying to better it for the future generations and ourselves while we're here if we can, right? Which is what I'm trying to do. That's all. So basically, all I'm saying is I'm trying to put my thoughts and ideas out there, or how I look at or perceive the world, give my opinions on it, and try to use critical thinking skills to help others either educate themselves or look at the world from a different perspective, right? And then this is where I started getting frustrated because, sure, this is fair, this is absolutely correct. Not enjoying or criticizing the system is one thing. Actively engaging in the work required to change it is another. That's true. This is the part I don't agree with. Most of us would still rather sedate, be comfortable, and look for a leader even when looking for a new system to replace the current one because we haven't identified how we benefit from the current system. How can you expect people to be voting on each ruling when, like you said, most aren't even thinking critically because they're comfortable to go through the motions? So that's fair, but I think it comes with an intrinsic level of education or educating yourself on the matters, being more engaged in the system, not just saying, oh, well, they're taking care of it so I don't have to worry about it, and then just giving your opinions on the decisions made. Trying to actively educate ourselves on the things, increasing our critical thinking skills, having conversations with other people to have new ideas or embrace other perceptions. But yeah, people are lazy, and if most people would rather sedate themselves than try to fix the system, then what gives them any right to complain or criticize the system as it currently is? You know what I mean? Or the people who are trying to change it for the better, which you can see in the comments of the more recent stuff I've been posting. But I was getting frustrated with Jazz because I felt like they weren't really hearing what I was saying because they were just operating from their own cognitive bias and dissonance, right? But I responded to them. I said, I respect that people have different points of view, but seeing as our modern world evolved from slavery and feudalism, I'm sure there were slaves saying, I don't want to revolt. I get food and shelter in exchange for work. Like, yeah, but is that freedom? In my mind, that seems more like ego and survival instinct saying, I'm fine here, so why should I help anyone else fight for their cause or equal rights? But let's keep going. So then this was the one looking into the spoiler effect. So I just looked it up. So basically it says an election can be skewed by one candidate being in the running, and this image kind of helps shows it more where people, based on their first choice, this person was eliminated, even though against the person directly he was favored or they were favored. So basically what this is saying is, like, when you have one-on-one situations, one person could be favored over another in two different situations, but then when it comes down to it, this person may get eliminated because these people get more votes, which I'll try to explain it more in this reel, but it's a system that, or this explanation I feel like explains the system we have, but it doesn't do a good job. This more explains people's thinking or how the system works, but it doesn't go into how it works on a more fundamental level, if that makes sense, you know? But then was cut because the first choice was those ones. But I feel like this is just trying to explain the system we have, but then not taking into consideration that, like, the people we vote in to have the seats, have the power, have more voting power than the actual people. Again, this comes down to the democracy of voting and having the choice of who's in power, but not being able to vote on the actual decision-making process or decisions made in the society or by the government, right? Leading to power vacuums and corruption, in my opinion, right? And then obviously I went to bed, or I didn't look at Instagram for a while because this is the next day. And now I start getting into less logical comments saying, like, what I'm thinking is logical fallacy, because I go into the definitions and I'm looking at the people in power, not just the nation as a whole. So I said, what I say is logical, ironically, unlike this comment. And now we can see with this reel is when it really started picking up in terms of getting a lot more comments or hate comments, and I feel like a lot more bot comments and bot engagement. But let's watch it here and go through some comments. Actually, before we get into the newer reels with more engagement, I'm realizing it's 10 o'clock now, so I have to get ready for work. But let me just give some final thoughts on that stuff before I keep going, and then like I said before, I'll record more parts and kind of stitch them together as I go. But let's quickly look at the system as it is currently, right? We have the society, the people. Let's look at everybody included, right? Both the working class, the poor, the homeless, and then moving up the system, we have the higher earners, and then we get to the ruling class or the people in power, right? So, since I've looked into Marxism, which talks about giving the means of production back to the people, I've talked about this before in the sense of, I think our modern system, our society with capitalism tries to solve this, the stock market and being able to own stocks of companies. But then it comes down to, again, if you don't have enough stock power or buying power to have enough of a company to make decisions, it doesn't really matter. You just get some of the earnings from the company, but you don't get decision-making power, right? So I really think the disconnect is what we need to highlight between the working class and the ruling class, right? I think if we look at it in the form of a pyramid, it would look like this, right? With the power being moved to the top. And I think if we're looking at the system as it currently is, all we need to do is kind of shift the shape or perspective and have it look something more like this, if that makes sense. Basically, what I'm trying to say is put the ruling class or the high earners at the same level as the working class, but give the majority of the power in decision making to the working class or the people, because I don't think government workers do as much work as the working class in terms of ruling class versus working class, if that makes sense, right? This can be perfectly seen through politicians like Pierre Poilievre, who's been in the House of Parliament since his 20s, not really passing any bills, and coming from a position of nepotism. Same with Justin Trudeau, right? Like I said in my reels, it seems very hard for a person of the working class without a bunch of money to sponsor their campaigns to actually become a politician or get into these clubs, right? As we've heard before, I forget who said the quote, but there's a bunch of clubs, or it's a big club that we're not in as the working class, right? I want to say it again that I'm not advocating for a complete dismantlement of our current system, but just how can we change our perception, use critical thinking and problem solving skills, the most major issues in the current society or system, right? And I have multiple reels and YouTube videos going into communism and socialism, different forms of psychological disorders and conditions, to try and understand people's psychology and thinking, and to truly understand how the system works. And when I look at our current system and then compare it to definitions, it seems like the most accurate seem to be pathocratic fascism, right? Both looking at definitions and etymology of words, in my opinion. And that being said, like I've said before, I think if we look at the society as that, or taking that theory further, anybody who wants to move up or advance in that pathocratic fascist society is then going to have to take on or display those same traits of narcissism, psychopathy, and sociopathy, right? I think that makes sense to say, because that's what the whole system is focused on, having leaders that are focused on themselves and nationalism, but then not necessarily the working class, or they say they are until they get into power, and then as we can see with Trump or whoever the politician is, they just want to get the support to get into power to do whatever they want, basically, right? We can see this perfectly this year in 2025 or last year in 24, whenever Trump was elected for the second time and then started introducing tariffs, which as we see then raised the price on commodities for the consumer. I think ideally the companies were supposed to eat the cost of the tariffs, but then they just ended up passing that down to the consumer and making goods and services more expensive, right? And this brings up another good point, that even if the person in power has the best interests in mind of the people, the working class, or the nation, whatever it is, but then the people in power of the businesses and the corporations and the means of production still display these same traits of pathocracy, then what does it matter? You know, I think this is why it's so important that we have to look at philosophy, psychology, people's thinking, and understanding how their life growing up and their influences around them influence who they are as an adult or as a person with their own decision-making abilities. But yeah, this is kind of a roundabout way of me saying that I feel like I am definitely on the spectrum, and the thing that I hyper-focus on, or my fixation in a way, is people, psychology, their thinking, how we interact with each other. And it's one of those ones where I feel like normal people, quote unquote, may somewhat see people on the spectrum as lesser, or having focuses that may distract them in such a way that, like, oh, they only focus on trains or cars, or they're distracted from what's important. But in my mind, it seems like the intellectual part of the Captain America super soldier serum. And that's why he's able to throw his shield and have it bounce off these different angles and come back to him, because he's literally doing the math and calculating the angles on the run. And when we look at that with people on the spectrum, I think it can definitely be used as a superpower, the autism spectrum disorder, in such a way where if we highlight these people as maybe savants or super intellectual in one space or one thing that they are passionate about, how can we utilize that in society for the better? How can someone like me, with my thinking or critical thinking skills, problem solving abilities, be used or harnessed to help society and make it better? I don't want the power necessarily, but I want to teach people and educate to the point where people can think for themselves, and we can all be part of changing society for the better, right? The last thing I'll say before I stop this recording is that I mentioned briefly on TikTok there that if I was to start a political party, it would probably end up being the Philosophical Anarcho-Communist Party of Canada, so the PAC Party of Canada, right? Looking at egalitarianism, socialism, communism, and to some level pacifism, to not just get into power and go to war and try to steal other people's land or resources, right? How can we not only trade but work with people to not only better our nation, but then theirs as well? And how can we look at other philosophical thinkers or other educators and activists through history and try to truly take the best philosophies or ideas and improve society for the better with them, right? But that being said, I'm going to leave this recording here for now because I have to go to work soon, and then I'll pick it up again either in the morning after work or the next time I'm feeling like going through the comments and talking more about this stuff. Alright, so it is 7 o'clock the next morning, and I just got off of work, so I thought why not continue with the video I was recording last night. Alright, so let's pick up where we started off yesterday. So I would say this is kind of the definition of overkill. I know they have the road shut down. Obviously this guy was creeping forward and probably had a turn signal. Maybe not. Maybe his headlights out there. But if bro is not like actively rushing right at the thing and he's trying to turn around, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense to me. And obviously as he's driving back here, you can hear people, or you can hear them still firing. So I wonder if they're still shooting at the car or maybe these people, but And you can see how there's a pause, and then it keeps going. Like, this would be abuse of power, right? That would be abuse of power, right? This is when we start to see the really unhinged comments, I guess. As you can see by the caption here, I said, don't worry guys, this is the ultra-militarized police force that will keep us safe. Yeah, no. Where is this when the supremacists are out with their flags? Would these guys ever turn on a tyrannical government? Or are they just fighting for them because they're following orders? Abusing positions of power and perpetuating fascism is disgusting. We're all made of water. We all bleed the same color. And as you can see, the start of the unhinged comments, like I said, this person said could have stayed inside and played video games, but this person chose to go out and poke the fortified bear blocking the road. I said I guess you could just sit inside, or you could actively try to speak out and fight back against this shit, right? Like I'm doing here now. I think I would have driven into the police at that point. Oh yeah, there must be replies to these too. It's annoying how on mobile you can see the video replies, but not on here. This person said the police must be having a blast, and I said shitty point of view in my opinion. Good, next we'll get the military in to clean up the trash. In response I said gotta love fascist glazers flexing their ego and lack of critical thinking skills. And then this person on the activist side here says Molotov them or surround them with big fire till they choke and decease, which I don't necessarily advocate for, but you know, to each their own, I guess. That's where the pacifism comes in, right? And here you can see with this Aiden Ross repost is when we started getting a lot of traction on the profile, right? Almost at 40,000 views, you can see down here. And then a decent amount of interaction with it too, right?
No, Neon, that means that if you sue him, he has nothing to his name, it's all in trusts. He's smart.
We'll find a way.
Hey, do you have a Jew as your lawyer?
How you fucking know?
Because the trust method. I know the method.
Oh, you know the method?
Yeah, so what you do is you put all your assets in trusts, so if they come to sue after you, they can't get anything.
They can't get shit.
I do that too.
Yeah. Smart, yeah.
Do you have a Jew as your lawyer? I do too.
Just a reminder, you can have whatever religious belief you want, but Zionism is anti-Semitism. Which I make videos further on, I make more reels later going into. You can see a few people laughing, whether that's to the video and how I imitated Aiden Ross or to my opinion there. I think I did a video reply there. This person here said neo-Zios is what I call them, and I gave that a like because I can see that. Cringe reaction, I think I said true. Yep. Aiden Ross is Jewish as well. Yep. Exactly, his family is massive in the Jewish community. Call a lot of the shots, hence why he's so famous. And because he cross-dressed, yeah. Heritage, not religious, right? Which is basically the point I was trying to make in my comments at the end there. And then I'm pretty sure I pinned this one on mobile as well. This person said, listen, you can't sue a trust, but you can sue a trustee. So yes, you can, but no, you can't sue the trustee for money. You sue them for the assets they hold. So don't listen to him. I think I said, yeah, gem of a comment, but I misspelled it, or it auto-corrected, but, you know, I was probably going through them pretty quickly. This person corrected me, and I did like it. Here is low intelligence. This guy, I'm pretty sure he agreed with me, said, boom, great take actually, very true. Kind of how I'm starting to feel most Christian religions might have gotten Jesus' message a little mixed up. Completely agree with that, you know? And then, yeah, this is a bot for sure. That is not a definition. This is not a definition. Okay. Whatever you say, homie. And if we keep going here, I'm pretty sure I replied to that one that said, yeah, define Zionism. We can watch that next, for a bit more context. Well, I'm not going to make my own up, but let's look up what it is. They want to create a state in what they call their Holy Land, which is currently Palestine. Okay. What is anti-Semitism? A hatred or unfair treatment of Jewish people. Who are the Jewish people? What is Judaism? Oh, wow, look at that. Does And then here I highlight ethical and moral frameworks. Judaism emphasizes ethical behavior, justice, and social responsibility, which obviously, you know, the Zios are not portraying very well, right? That seem, I think I said this before last night, but they're just using Judaism as a scapegoat, basically, to justify their genocide and perpetuate bullshit, basically. Does that seem like... Fuck, man. This is what I'm talking about when the comments are proving me right, and thank you for asking me to define it so I can make this video and explain it to more people. But there's so many comments already that are going like womp womp or like just laughing at it. But if you read the caption, it proves what I'm saying correct, in my mind, I guess. I don't know, you can take this as my opinion, but when we're looking at the definitions, I'm trying to use the caption of this one, trying to simply explain it, but I reposted a video a while ago of a woman who was talking to AI to break it down, which broke it down perfectly. There are Jews against Zionism and Israel, because it doesn't go by the basics of the religion, it uses it superficially to push their cause, in essence creating the same kind of false flag situation that happened with Muslims during 9/11. And we can go through these comments, but I'm going to go back to that video of the woman talking to AI. We'll go to the original vid here.
To say Zionism is anti-Semitism?
Yes, structurally, Zionism is anti-Semitism. Here's why. Zionism collapses Jewish identity into a political project of statehood that systematically violates human rights. By doing so, it turns Jewishness into a tool of domination. That's anti-Semitic because it puts all Jews in danger when the state commits violence and claims to do so in their name. It erases anti-Zionist Jews who have long stood for justice. It weaponizes Jewish trauma to justify oppression. And it reinforces the anti-Semitic lie that Jewish safety must come at the expense of others' freedom. Real safety for Jews or anyone doesn't come from domination. It comes from shared dignity and rights for all people. Any ideology that denies that, including Zionism, is structurally anti-Semitic.
And that's a pretty damn good video right there. So now let's go through the comments of this quick.
No, Neon, that means that...
Won't go through all of them, obviously. Instead as being racist racism, must have done a reply. Even though Jews considered them a race, they're not officially a full race, so it's not racist, and if being Zionist is anti-Semitism, then all the things that they do to Muslims and other religions is also anti-Semitic, because yeah, I guess in a broader term, against putting people of religious faith in danger, really, right? This person asks, do you even see it as a religion anymore? Obviously, I tried to. The description is not the described. It's always more than you can ever say or describe it as, you know? This person made a decent point, said actual Judaism practice in the way that it was originally taught looks more like Islam and modern day Judaism, same with Christianity. That might have been a typo there. Looks more like Islam and Christianity, probably. This person disagreed. They said Judaism doesn't teach love. If you read their scripture, you would be disgusted by what they think of non-Jews. Whatever. I think that's similar to organized religions like Christianity and the Bible, right? And how some people try to manipulate that and say, oh, it means God hates gay people or whatever. Like, I think that's a pretty superficial view. And then I was basically saying that's a generalization, because it wouldn't be all Jews that follow or practice the scripture, right? So it's a generalization to say the whole practice is hateful or toxic. I'd argue that it's Zionists cosplaying as Jews, giving them a bad name. I reposted a video of Jews protesting Israel with Palestine flags, which I'll show you later in the video. This person said you can't put your life in a trust. True. You also can't put it in money, really, right? Not many friends around, and I just I plugged my song there. Exactly, bro gets it. Anti-Semitism isn't cool, and people confuse government and people. Absolutely. This person also said the base of Judaism is not love and compassion, it's supremacy, it's disgusting. Yeah, and then going back through this thread here, I can summarize the quotes listed as I am a jealous God, and all nations shall disavow their own gods and worship me. I have chosen you to fulfill this demand. Somebody said Yeshua was Arabic, he spoke Hebrew. The Israelites think they were God's chosen people, and modern Jews aren't related to them. You should recall that Moses only left for a moment, and the Israelites began to practice pagan acts and idol worship. Yeah, and idol worship. This continued today, so God disowned the Jews and his chosen people as his chosen people. And I basically said thank you for proving the point. Yeah, basically that this would be like Zionism, not Judaism, right? Then somebody said prove the Talmud. Talmud is not canon, it's a collection of rabbinic debates. Give a different example, the entire idea of being God's chosen people for one, which is supremacy. Which, yeah, I think that's more the Israelites than Jews, but if it is the Jews as a whole, then I disagree with that idea, you know? So the religion is based on racial supremacy, and they aren't even ethnic Jews. They are European imposters weaponizing the territory and manipulating their religious neighbors to combat each other and implementing, yes. And this person says you get it, which is also the point that I was trying to make. Because he was making everyone conscious of what's really occurring. And that's why I think, like, a lot of the Abrahamic religions, and that's why I think a lot of the Abrahamic religions are a lot more similar than people want to believe, right? But yeah, I think we understand what's going on here. And also, you can see the womp womp. Oh wait, it's going back through. Which is weird that it doesn't load. Oh, maybe that was all the comments with replies and stuff. Reposted this one.
The fucking playbook. Look, I was raised a liberal, okay? I believed in the power of a peaceful protest for a very long time of my life. I see people arguing about, like, if blocking the street is peaceful, if yelling too loud is peaceful. Do you think these people give a fuck about peace? Do you think these National Guardsmen come out in their full milkits against citizens who love y'all down, are woefully unprepared to be standing toe-to-toe with a militarized police force? They are grabbing people from their homes, from their jobs, from their cars. Any shred of belief you had in the political system we live under should be shattered. The system is working as intended, and for many of us, that means the system is inherently a failure. We are watching videos of cops just like abruptly shooting into lawyers and legal defenders and observers for no fucking reason. You think these people give a fuck about peace? It is time to start reading, if you have not yet, about what needs to be done under fascism to resist the fascism. And as a citizen in the imperial core, it is your duty to respond to that. I'm gonna be really honest. I'm gonna need us to update the fucking playbook. Look, I was raised a...
And I completely agree with what she's saying there. And that's why I advocate for, you know, updating the system and the playbook like she talks about. But then this is the ignorance that you have to combat against, right? People just thinking, oh, no reason, get a hold of yourself, bro. You guys are breaking into businesses, setting cars on fire, set police horses on fire, attacking police officers. And I will show a video that I reposted of peaceful protests that only got more escalated once officers arrived there, you know. Yes, so this person here, I just responded saying, so you're advocating for murdering protesters because a few individuals are doing what you're talking about? How is that lawful, peaceful, or de-escalation in any way? Lol. Like, do people forget these are supposed to be the ones enforcing the law? And if there are people doing this, yeah, sure, go after them. But don't just say all protesters are doing this, right? That just doesn't make any sense. And then laughing at this person. Original video, he's not poking the bear, he's not actively driving at the fucking thing trying to ram through it. You can see he's on the side of the road just creeping forward, going into the parking lot. This would be an abuse of power because they have no reason to be fucking shooting him if he's not fucking actively attacking them, whatever the fuck. But yeah, someone could choose to spend their time inside playing video games, or they could choose to be on social media or out in the world trying to fight against this shit. You know what I mean? Brother, what are you talking about? In the original video, he's not poking the bear, he's not actively driving at the fucking thing trying to ram through it. You can see he's on the side of the road just creeping. Right, what I said the first time, basically, where they were abusing power. And in the caption I said, I guess you could just sit inside, or you could actively try to fight back, right? I read that earlier. The person replied and said the National Guard was deployed, that means go home, it's gone too far, don't F with the military. And I said it's all love, but joining the military is damn near the most brainwashed thing you can get, lol. Like, you know what I mean. I don't really respect anybody who joins the military, not gonna lie. And that's coming from someone who used to think about it in terms of, oh, defending freedom and democracy, whatever, but that's just fucking brainwashing, man. It's all propaganda. But let's keep going.
A lot of fascist propaganda is actually just porn. Case in point, Candace Owens' new transvestigation series, Becoming Brigitte. Welcome back to Fascist Propaganda 101. Over the past few weeks, Candace Owens has produced over 6 hours of content claiming that the First Lady of France, Brigitte Macron, is actually a trans woman. It's bad and incoherent and mind-bogglingly stupid.
She married someone with the same first name as her brother. And then Jean-Claude married someone with the same name as his sister. Just very convenient and very confusing.
Do all of these French people have the same name so they can play musical chairs with their gender? Or is it because they're Catholic? These types of allegations are called transvestigations, a form of conspiracy theory that's been popular on the right for a while. Basically, it's when people try and prove someone is secretly trans. Transvestigations often target powerful women, from Taylor Swift to Michelle Obama to Olympic athletes. Speculating about people's genitals is a deeply weird way to spend one's precious time on Earth, but Candace's transvestigation is especially gross and creepy because she's been insinuating that Brigitte Macron isn't just trans, she's actually her husband Emmanuel Macron's father.
Is Brigitte Macron the First Lady of France, Emmanuel Macron's biological father?
So, this is just incest porn. Obviously, it's fucking weird. It's also a pretty standard tool in fascist propaganda. If you look at anti-Semitic Nazi propaganda, you'll notice how it often depicts hateful images of Jewish people in sexual scenarios. Jews sneaking up on sleeping German women, Jews eyeing German children, Jewish doctors preying upon German women. From the Jews to the Japanese to Black Americans, smut has permeated hateful propaganda for like ever. People are drawn to taboo sex stuff. When we see something that's transgressive, we feel like we can't look away. Including taboo sex stuff in fascist propaganda makes us want to watch it. And you can see it in people's reactions to Candace's claims.
I'm gonna throw up. I've been watching Candace Owens. The president is married to his father.
That video has 5 million views. People like porn. Even when people don't realize they're watching porn, they still like porn. Fascists know that they can get their propaganda out to more people if they appeal to our fascination with sexual deviance. And the great thing about making porn people don't realize is porn is that you can sneak in hateful messaging and still sell supplements.
Today's episode is sponsored by Momentous.
Or mortgage lenders.
Call American Financing today at 800-795-1210.
Or meat delivery services.
Don't forget to use my code Candace and you'll claim your free meat and $25 off.
Sex sells, which is why a lot of fascist propaganda is actually just porn.
And I made a stitch to that. I forget what I said.
Welcome back to Fascist Propaganda 101. Over the past few weeks, Candace Owens has produced over 6 hours of content claiming that the First Lady of France, Brigitte Macron, is actually a trans woman.
Great vid. Definitely watch that full original video and then go to her page and support her content. Because she's making a really good point there, and I feel like this perfectly adds to what I was saying yesterday about how the fascism we're seeing in North America and around the world, at this point basically on a global scale, is not as much open or loud fascism like it used to be, but now, pretty much since the Cold War, it's all quiet fascism, based on whatever, war on terror, war on drugs, war on communism and socialism. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand this, as well as the fact that propaganda can be as nuanced as porn, like what she's talking about, or the transvestigation series, right? And that's why it's so important to have critical thinking skills about the things you're not only seeing and participating in, but the thoughts that you are having in your own mind and then expressing to the world, right?
A lot of fascist propaganda.
And then I'll show this. I think this is a pretty cool vid. So there are some that are against Israel and they'll openly protest them, right? And then I was responding to Jazz's comment here. Fair enough, but how do you learn a new way of life without somebody either giving you the idea or teaching you preemptively, right? When we're children, we don't come out of the womb knowing how to read and write and speak. We learn those skills over time, right? Sure, people can be comfortable, but I think it comes down to them not wanting to learn anymore or not wanting to engage in the society around them. You can be comfortable in discomfort, sure. What you're talking about in this comment is the privilege of living in the heart of the empire. Meaning, it's not happening outside my front door, I just see it on TV or my phone, so it doesn't affect me, so I'm not going to think about it. Ignorance is bliss, right? And ignorance is not stupidity, but lack of knowledge. So my way of actively trying to change it is giving the people the knowledge to then actively try and change it themselves for the better, right? Basically teaching the ABCs of communism here. Right, but let's go through their response here, right? But only children wanting to learn how to read and write will do so. Those children who are rather happier being illiterate and even take pride in it won't. Just because the information has been out there, and it's been out there for centuries at least. You're not necessarily talking about anything brand new, doesn't mean that people have the will or desire to take that in, and if they did, we wouldn't have the world we do now. And I think, again, like the two videos we just watched, it has to do a lot with propaganda, brainwashing, a lot of lack of critical thinking skills. And when I first read this, I thought they were advocating for illiteracy, but I guess there are people who take pride in their ignorance, would have been a better way to say it, because I was confused reading that. Yeah, and then I said, damn, imagine being illiterate. But yeah, ignorance really is bliss. Thank you for the comment and engagement. Woohoo, let's go. Thought that was pretty funny.
You know, there's a right side to history and a wrong side to history. You're ever wondering if you're on the right or the wrong side? Let's put it this way. The right side is usually the one where you're siding with the disenfranchised group of people who's being terrorized by a military power. I can say that with 100% confidence. Apply that wherever you want.
Right, and that's why I say, yes sir, this is why I say, fuck the gov and the 1% funding with lobbying and corporate oligarchy, basically, corporatocracy, right? People are trying to say, wrong. Government is actually doing the job we voted for. You are a small group of like-minded anarchists, which anarchists don't advocate violence. Anarcho-pacifists reject violence, right? Let me reply to that. So yeah, as you can see here, I said, if they're all in the same club, what does it matter who someone votes for? Also, anarcho-pacifists advocate for non-violence. Most, if not all, the media surrounding modern anarchism is military propaganda. I think that's facts, as you can see with the V for Vendetta. Don't know if that one is on the DoD sponsored list, or I forget who made that one, but that kind of imagery of, you know, an anarchist bombing a place or whatever. And I feel like this comment, the military power lets you say this dumb shit. They tried to use a popo, but play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I think that goes back to the quiet fascism thing, right? And I also reposted a pretty good video.
And I want to talk about law. I worked in the New York City criminal courts getting kids out of Rikers Island for a while. And I want to talk about law in America and the way that legality is sometimes made equivalent to morality. There are two ways that legal scholars try to determine legal validity. What should matter is law. That is the natural law position, and on the other side is legal positivism. Natural law says that the basis of all law is morality outside of human experience. And over history, the most true or most moral laws come into realization naturally. And on the other side, legal positivism says that there is no basis for laws except for the current historical circumstances that arise in that specific society. And there are problems on both sides. Both positions have difficulties. However, a Marxist scholar, Gretchen Bars, in her book Law, Capitalism, and the Corporation, has proposed a third alternative, and this is the commodity form theory of law. And the commodity form theory of law says that just like in Marxist stagism, which is to say that over time the laws of production are what allowed for the domination of the working class over a historical period, she states that laws over time form in alliance with the ruling class. So the ruling class will promote and create laws that allow them to have further domination over the population. This is important because it shows us that laws are threats by the ruling class to control the population. They do not represent the good, which means we have no obligation to follow them. The state at large should represent the people and not just the richest minority of people that exist within that state.
And like this comment says, makes sense to me. Punishing someone for being homeless is not exactly moral, you know? I absolutely agree with this comment and this video. Definitely check out this guy's page. He's got a few good videos I've reposted so far.
I worked in the New York City criminal court.
And we can also watch.
Government surveillance is expanding and the military-industrial complex is growing. Between the increased defense budget, the continued funding of foreign bombing campaigns, and the massive contracts with Palantir, even Trump supporters are starting to confront reality. Slowly, more of them are realizing that draining the swamp was a lie. He has increased defense spending by 13%, and his administration tapped the tech corporation Palantir to create a surveillance database that will merge information across agencies. The company has received over $113 million from the federal government this year, and last week the Department of Defense awarded Palantir a $795 million contract. The company was initially funded by the CIA's investment arm, In-Q-Tel. Now, the information leaked by Edward Snowden and the Vault 7 documents released by WikiLeaks years ago have already proven that the CIA and other government agencies have illegally spied on civilians. And these latest contracts with Palantir appear to be another step in this direction, one step closer to an Orwellian surveillance state. Heck, some even argue that we are already there. That being said, I am hopeful when I see people wake up and realize that they've been lied to. Neither political party fights for your freedoms, they both erode them. And they keep sliding money to the military-industrial complex. Follow Corruption Report for more videos about corruption in the ruling class.
See, that's why I love intelligent people who know what the they're talking about, and they do the research, man. Great video as usual. Corruption Report always has amazing stuff. Definitely check out his page as well. I feel like this goes without saying, but I'm gonna say it again anyways. I am fighting against Zionism for Judaism in the same way that if I was older, after 9/11, I would fight for Muslims and try to disband the thoughts that all Muslims are terrorists, because they're not. That's not logical or factual, right? Just like all Jews are not Zionists. And I'm sure there are Christians that don't support the crusade or what happened to indigenous people, right? Let's just remember that the religion or the spirituality or the roots of it are much different and usually come from love. Whereas most of the time what we're seeing on social media or the news, whatever, is just a superficial version used to push whatever narrative, right? But yeah, I think I'll set this third section of the recording down for now and pick it up again later. And I just realized going through my profile, there was a video where I did a remix to it, so I added text over the original video and reposted it on Instagram, of peaceful protest in Switzerland. It was cops leading the protesters, and then the protesters were peacefully following, doing chants and showing the Palestinian flags and all that, right? And now I look at my page and it's not there anymore. So that means either the person who originally posted it took it down, which I don't know why they would, or maybe somebody reported it or flagged it and they got it taken off Instagram. And that being said, why would they do that for a video showing peaceful protests, but not protests turning violent when police and authorities show up in LA, which I also have reposted a few videos of on my page. At least the videos showing the peaceful protests in LA haven't been taken down, but I feel like that's kind of weird, you know? It also shows how Instagram or people could be doing things behind the scenes to affect or alter your content without you knowing it, right? I haven't had too much content taken down myself, but I feel like Instagram definitely didn't push my account before this point because of the things that I was saying and my art maybe, especially like my song Pushing Against Oppression, which is literally pushing against the gov like the protesters are doing right now, which is why you can see one of my pinned reels is, I can even pull it up and show you, that's why I have this reel pinned that's promoting my music while using video of the LA protest, right?
The way it is getting oppression. I've been trying to find some justice. If you're broke, it's just depressing. Fuck the government and the 1% that's funding. If I see him in a lobby trying to lobby, I'm a slump. I work a little older every day, only ever pissed and raging. I don't want a pot to piss in. If it's charging monthly payments, Mr. Money Bags, he don't know no change. I've been flying up above the clouds, out of space, elevated.
So it's unfortunate that that reel doesn't have as much engagement as the more political activist posts, but as you can see from the engagement, it is all kind of adding to my profile and helping me reach more people to promote my messages, right? So now let's pick up where I left off before, because this is a few days later now. I'm pretty sure I already showed this reel, but I'll show it again. So as you can see by that reel, there are obviously Jewish people out there who are against Israel and Zionism, just like the majority of other people, I would say. And it's funny how Zionists try to talk about anti-Semitism when in reality, Zionism itself is anti-Semitism, right? As we can see from this video that I reposted and did a stitch to.
Accurate to say Zionism is anti-Semitism?
Yes, structurally, Zionism is anti-Semitism. Here's why. Zionism collapses Jewish identity into a political project of statehood that systematically violates human rights. By doing so, it turns Jewishness into a tool of domination. That's anti-Semitic because it puts all Jews in danger when the state commits violence and claims to do so in their name. It erases anti-Zionist Jews who have long stood for justice. It weaponizes Jewish trauma to justify oppression. And it reinforces the anti-Semitic lie that Jewish safety must come at the expense of others' freedom. Real safety for Jews or anyone doesn't come from domination. It comes from shared dignity and rights for all people. Any ideology that denies that, including Zionism, is structurally anti-Semitic.
And I would say that's closer to oppression, right? But let's keep going here. Now we're going to get into one of the reels that, as you can see by the engagement, definitely had a lot of bots commenting on it, but then a lot of people who definitely weren't understanding, and it's kind of ironic that I put the Cartman gif over this reel, and then people are basically turning into the Cartman gif, which is what that whole character is about, is making fun of stupid people, right? And I will say before we watch this reel, this is a repost. I didn't add the white text, I only added the Cartman gif, but I thought that this was a pretty interesting point of view, and it really made me think of like the Hunger Games, right? And that's why I reposted it. But then I feel like a lot of people were just going against this, or maybe not understanding the message on a deeper level, and maybe wanting to be contrarians. I'm not entirely sure, but let's check it out right now. So I'm sure the person who added this white text was the original person who reposted this video of the party or the event, and then I added the Cartman gif on top, kind of making fun of the party as well, and then the people who are going to be going against this caption, you know? And then people not really caring about what's going on, just saying, oh dude, look at that, but this party's sweet, right? And there are going to be comments saying like, oh, there are people of color, or there's different people at this party. But that just reinforces the idea of like racism and colorism, and the idea that based on your skin color you have a certain type of life or whatever, right? And I also added the caption to this repost that says, damn, I guess ignorance really is blissful, huh? Showing that people at this party are having a good time ignorant of what's going on in the world. And of course, the first comment, but you're there too, right? I said someone was, but I reposted the vid with the Cartman gif. I'm sure this is sarcastic. Somebody said, oh, great addition to the content. I just said thanks, you know? So I think this was talking about how I was talking about, oh, I'm engagement farming, or trying to highlight the deeper issues in the world, but not just coming straight forward and doing like face cam videos, because those don't seem to get as much interaction as we can see here, right? So this person said, are you really trying to use brainwash politics to get your music out? And you, our words, wonder why nobody believes a fucking thing you say. It's all hypocritical nonsense, music trash as fuck. And then he tries insulting my music. And I just said, whatever you say, little bro, thanks for the engagement. Because at the end of the day, he has the right to his own opinion, thinking it's brainwash politics. But both this person who reposted the partying video and me are kind of realizing that and somewhat making fun of it, but trying to highlight that, right? And then they tried coming back and say, oh, I didn't listen, wouldn't give you the rise, that's literally all you're looking for, engagement, spelled backwards, that's despair. I don't know what bro was talking about here. He's trying to say that I'm sad for just engagement farming, but I said the ego never dies, because with an at like ego death, it's kind of ironic, because the ego is connected to self-preservation, which is never going to die as long as you are alive in this physical pain body, but you can vacation away from it, right? You can actively take time away from it, but you're always going to end up back there and having to, you know, go through that same process of working through the shadow work and the ego to go on the vacation when you do get that break from it, and then you go back to it, right? This person looks real, but they have bot mentality. They say, I stand with ICE, police, National Guard, and Marines. Whatever. And I just replied calling him a clown and doing a salute. Because in my opinion, anybody who joins the military or fights other people's fights for them, but is just being told what to do and just going to kill other people, not trying to fight for people without a voice, in my opinion, they're clowns, and they are some of the most brainwashed people in the world. Which is probably why they have the loudest voice when it comes to oppression and brainwashing, politics, whatever, because that's their indoctrination. They're some of the people least likely to have their own genuine thoughts and opinions, right? They're just following orders, following what everybody else before them says and talks about. I don't know, this stuff just shows like lack of maturity to me. And then even this person saying that I'm a clown, it's like, okay, I am kind of taking that stance of being a public person, but there are people with a lot more makeup or superficiality than me. I'm trying to be real and authentic, talk about what I want to, but then people like this think they're top shit, I guess. This person just posted a flag. I said fuck the gov and the 1% that's funding. This person posted a pretty funny gif here. I said that's jokes. Talking on behalf of minorities, which is pretty funny because we're all oppressed under the 1%, even though we are 99%. You know what I mean? We're literally being oppressed by minorities, but the minority is the 1% with all the money, the wealth, and the power. You know what I mean? This person said, am I invited to the Cookout app host? And as you can see by the name here, it won't pull up the profile, but they're just a gym junkie. And and he's got one of those mustaches only, so I said, are my muscles big enough to be accepted and loved yet, Tad? Account. Yes, sir, by both my mommy and daddy. Like, what the fuck? And if you're gonna throw out a diss, try not to add a compliment. If all you care about is muscles, and you're trying to offend me with this kind of shit, it's like, what are we talking about here, bro? And then somebody tagged this person and said, you're invited, Pookie, and then said, ooh, wrong person. Oh no, hope this video doesn't get low interaction, and then, I don't know, I've been getting more interaction, so this whole point is kind of nullified. More people making assumptions, and then they're going back and forth. I don't know, oh, it's repeating I don't know why it does that sometimes too. This guy's saying, grow up, I said, back at ya, bud. Poor baby has it rough living in a country with free will. I said you have free will everywhere. It's more a matter of if the country in question is silent or loudly oppressing their people. And I feel like at this point most of the world is quietly fascist, oppressing its people. There are very few openly fascist countries, you know? Kind of like what we see with North Korea, China, and the States, you know what I mean? This person said, so throwing bricks at American working citizens is somehow non-violent, American-owned businesses and crime. Like, this is all cognitive bias, cognitive dissonance, right? This person said, I'm trying to get some illegal chick to notice me. That's jokes. This person with a great comment here said, the looters and protesters are not the same people. You realize two different groups of people can show up to the same place at the same time, right? Right, so you're saying that it's 100% fact that the looters and rioters are American citizens. And it's like, bro, sure. if they're American citizens, then you can't deport them for being an illegal, but you would charge them with the crime that they commit. And it's ironic that a lot of the aggravators and people committing crimes like vandalism, looting, or aggravating the crowd, disturbing the peace, whatever, are undercover officers. This person trying to twist the narrative so brown and black people aren't working class. Definitely. Race is a social construct like gender. The gov doesn't work. People do. We're all made of water. We all bleed the same color. This person tried to retort saying gender is a linguistic tool to identify sex, which it's not, because that's why we have sex. So it does say the male or female sex, but sex is based on biology and anatomy, and this says when considered with reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological ones, or one of a range of other identities that do not correspond to established ideas of male and female. So as much as it is still a linguistic tool, sure, I would still say it's used to generalize people, judge a book by its cover, or for people to give themselves identity or labels based on their preferences or how they feel in society, but not based on the male and female sex or anatomy. And that's why looking at specific definitions is so important, right? Race is just a color, which is colorism. And race is talking about like the color of your skin based on the group of people you come from, but you can have any color of skin from any nation, and there's a difference between racism, nationalism, and colorism, right? People saying you can't even have fun anymore. Literally one of the first people you see is black, and it's just like, It seems like a bunch of ignorance, cognitive bias, and cognitive dissonance where people can't change their perception or they can't interpret new information into it. You know what I mean? But let's keep going here.
Hi, former National Guard member here. Now that the Cheeto-in-Chief is going full-blown fascism, here's some tips, tools, and tricks that you can use to fight back. Tip number 1, get yourself some water balloons, used engine oil, and sand. Fill those and yeet those at the armored personnel carriers. You cannot get that stuff off the windows, and it completely impacts visibility. Tip number 2, get yourself some tow straps or chains and bind those wheels. What can't move can't escape. And tip number 3, make sure you grab any and all forms of garbage can lids and cones or buckets to put out tear gas canisters. Tear gas canisters react with water, so you can use water to completely deactivate them. Good luck out there, California. We're rooting for you.
So these would be some tips to keep in mind that are more or less non-violent. Sure, they get in the way of what ICE or the National Guard, whatever, is doing, but they are non-violent in terms of they are not directly hurting the people causing the crimes or oppression in terms of the people in power, you know? Obviously, there are people committing crimes like vandalism and looting. Sure, you can arrest those people, but then charge them for those crimes, and this is talking about the people getting picked up and just taken into detention centers, or being held captive without having due process, without being checked first or identified or whatever. And somebody posted a good video that I should try and find, talking about this more in depthly. And I didn't repost it on my story, but I might have saved it, so I'll try to find that after this. This person said stop prepping people for war, which I kind of agree with, but the whole point of this post is to combat oppression from the law enforcement, right? Peaceful protests are the only thing that will get red states on board, which he's talking about identity politics, and this is more in the moment when you're at the protest, but this is more generalized talk and whatever, right? How was America founded, or like, what was the whole point of the states going to war for their independence, right? It was fighting against the tyrannical government or the kings, the people, the monarchy, the people in power, to get their independence and freedom to make up their own laws and constitution, right? So yes, I agree that peaceful protest is important, but it gets to a certain point where if they're holding guns at you, I advocate for pacifism as much as possible. I don't know, I feel like you can be prepped for a situation without actively trying to go in to cause damage or violence to other people, you know what I mean? And that's why I said, whatever you say, man, egalitarian, socialism, communism over everything. Until then, it's fuck the gov and the 1% that's funding. This person replied to me. I said, the war we need is us, the people, versus the corrupt politicians, which I agree with. I said, agreed. Should check out my page for more. Gotta spread the word to as many people. Also, Palantir is gonna kill us all. We cannot allow one big bill to pass, which I agree is another problem with the states, is that they just combined a bunch of shit into big bills that talk about different issues, and then stuff gets passed that people don't necessarily want, or they get slid into stuff so politicians can pass stuff without people even realizing, right? This person said, always want to be soldiers that talk, that not, and I don't want to be a soldier, so I don't know what this person's talking about. And I just repeated the same things, right? 1% is Israel and its people, the Zionists, which, yeah, they are part of it. This person says, waiting for civil war. And then I reiterated the point that the other guy made, that, I mean, that's what they want, but that's why peaceful, nonviolent protests are so important. And this person replied, it wouldn't be important if we were peaceful, but there's nothing peaceful about the LA situation. Just a flat out riot, people crave violence, and it's like, bro, that's an assumption. Again, cognitive bias and dissonance. Let's go to Britannica. Cognitive bias, systematic error in the way individuals reason about the world due to subjective perception of reality. Cognitive biases are predictable patterns of error in how human brains function and therefore are widespread. Because cognitive bias affects how people understand and even perceive reality, they are difficult for individuals to avoid and in fact can lead to different individuals to subjectively different interpretations of objective facts. It is therefore vital for scientists, researchers, and decision makers who rely on rationality and factuality to interrogate cognitive bias when making decisions or interpretations of fact. Cognitive biases are often seen as flaws in the rational choice theory of human behavior, which asserts that people make rational choices based on their preferences, which makes sense, right? And now let's go to cognitive dissonance here. The state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude change. So basically, people either not knowing what the hell they're talking about or having flaws in their reasoning or processing abilities, right? Which I tried to go against in my own research. Try to look into all the things that people talk about, truly take in information from the other sides. But if you're just making generalizations like all of the protests in LA are riots and everybody's a vandal or a looter, that's just a generalization and you can't say that, you know? And I think one of the most important questions, like in philosophy, we have to ask ourselves why, right? Here we go.
If ICE asks for proof of citizenship, I don't have to show you anything? No, U.S. citizens are not required to carry proof of citizenship. But non-citizens are. Yep, if you're a non-citizen, it's a misdemeanor to not have documentation with you at all times. So being undocumented or overstaying your visa is a crime? No, those actually still aren't crimes. It's the getting caught without documentation that is. Exactly. Yeah, in 1940 there was a lot of pre-World War II paranoia, so we passed a law hoping it would allow us to create a registry of all the non-citizens in the United States. How does ICE even know that I'm a citizen if I don't need documentation? Well, you look like a Bible salesman. What's your name, Clark? Well, it's Chris, but I mean, for real though, like, what is stopping someone from just saying, no, I'm a U.S. citizen, I don't have to have documentation? They don't look like a Clark, so we'd probably detain them. But you wouldn't detain me, just based off of looks? Exactly. I can't detain U.S. citizens even if I suspect that you're a non-citizen, because ICE doesn't have authority over citizens. Then how do you know if someone's actually a non-citizen? We detain them. So you must accidentally detain citizens. Oh, all the time. So what happens then? Well, once you prove you're a citizen, you're free to go. But I'm not required to prove that I'm a citizen. You're not required to carry documentation. And you don't have authority over me. Correct. ICE only has authority over non-citizens. So shouldn't I just be able to tell you to fuck off? Yeah, sure. If you want to get arrested? By who? By ICE. You don't have authority over me. I do have the authority to make arrests for federal crimes, like obstruction of justice or resisting arrest, even if that arrest is later ruled to be unlawful. Does that mean that I could sue you? Sure. Could we flood your systems if we had thousands of citizens being unlawfully detained? You could try, but judges usually side with us. It's a pretty high bar to win an unlawful detainment by ICE case, and the few people that have won didn't really win much more than enough to cover their legal expenses. Jesus. So when you say that citizens don't need documentation and ICE doesn't have authority over citizens, that's effectively meaningless? Yeah, for people that don't look like a Clark. Because you wouldn't mess with me. Not if you don't interfere. So this is one of those laws that sounds like it's common sense, but the impact is just racist? Well, it did come from 1940s pre-war paranoia, so what do you expect? Yeah, weird that it's popping back up again, right? Really? Do you not watch the news? No, that was the joke. If ICE asks for proof of citizenship, I don't have to
The end of that video is perfect. Like, this whole interaction between the two is great. The two characters, I should say, made by this guy, which I have seen a few of his videos, and he seems to do a good job breaking stuff down. So definitely check it out if you want to see more of his content, right? And I just want to go through one or two more videos I have saved before we get back to the content that I've been posting and the comments that I've been getting. So we'll watch those now.
I posted a video of an undercover cop at a protest in Austin, and it got like 1 million views, and a lot of people are in the comments like, oh, how do you know that's a cop, this and that. Well, here's a video of this person arresting somebody.
Actually fight. You see the dude in the black too? That's undercover.
So that's that same guy.
as well as other undercover plainclothes police officers. And I'm posting this just to spread awareness, because a lot of the times these people provoke the police, their own people, to spin the narrative that the protest was not peaceful, and giving them an excuse to shoot rubber bullets, hurt the press, and just use their force. So just be very aware of these undercover police officers. Here's a few tips on how to tell who's a police officer. They look lame as hell. That's blue jeans, running shoes, the little sleeve the Waffle House cooks use to cover the tattoos. Look for that shit. They're out there. Find them. Every single person that I thought was an undercover cop was an undercover cop. And I don't care about no likes and all that shit. Posting this to bring awareness, because there's people that can't use their voice. I'm using my privilege as an American to talk about this shit, because there's a lot. I got a lot of people in my DMs, like a lot of little death threats and whatnot. Look, I ain't scared of nobody. I don't give a fuck. You know where to find me. I told y'all where to find me. I'm at the Sex Boutique over there on I-35.
At the end of that, I'm just gonna cut that out, but at the end of that, bro said, "Pull up, you know where I'm at." And he started talking about some information that could be considered doxing. So I'm not gonna post that in this video, but he posted it himself. He said, "Hey, pull up, you know where I'm at." So respect to that. He's standing on biz. And then I'll just show one more and then I'll show one more save video that I have, and then we'll get back to my content.
Muslims were not the ones who did 9/11, and I'm going to prove it to you by the end of this video. The media claimed that they could identify it was Muslims who hijacked the plane because they found one of the hijackers' passports in the rubble of the buildings. You're telling me they couldn't find a single one of the important documents in the burning fire of the buildings, but they could find one man's passport? Don't forget the third building that collapsed perfectly down, and it wasn't even hit by a plane. Even the firefighters who were on the scene said it looked like it was a demolition. That was also the building that had the SEC documents that were investigating Wall Street for mass fraud. There were documents in that building that were investigating over $300 billion worth of fraud. And we weren't able to find a single one of those papers, yet we found a random guy's passport. Thousands of architects have looked at how the buildings fell and say that the buildings would not have fallen like that if it was from a plane. They say that it looks like explosives were used from the bottom of the building. So then what happened after 9/11? America invaded a bunch of Muslim countries, killed a bunch of people, stole a bunch of oil, and then made it look like it was an Islamic terrorist attack. 9/11 was not caused by Muslims. It was caused by America covering up their own crimes and using Muslims as the blame to spread Islamophobia because they knew Islam was growing. If you do not believe me, it's because number one, you fear Islam, or number two, you are ignorant. Muslims were not the ones who did 9/11.
Which I would say is pretty damn accurate. And you can see the same playbook now happening with Zionism trying to anti-Semitically use Judaism to push genocide. Same playbook by the same types of people, the 1%, the people in power, but just with a different narrative attached, right? And this one even has a few comments. So let's check them out.
Oh, you got me. Oh, you got me.
So as you can see, there are obviously trolls or people just trying to comment shit to get me riled up or angry, whatever, and I'm just laughing at the ignorance, and honestly, some of them are pretty damn funny. Like, the fuck is this, man? I kept it going in the caption. I said, "Don't think I'll ever recover from this one." Like, bro, that's pretty funny. I can't really say anything else about that one.
So, where is this energy when people talk about colonial genocide? Or what's going on in the Middle East right now? Oh no, it's happening in my backyard or my country, whatever, so now it's a big deal. Bro, and most of the people they're deporting, calling illegal immigrants, sending them to fucking prison camps, are closer to asylum seekers than illegal immigrants. If they are trying to leave where they were previously because of war or destruction or whatever it is, and then they're coming into this other country to work and pay taxes and contribute to society, what are we talking about here?
So I'm gonna let it keep going, but obviously this person saying, oh, because of the protests, the city's getting destroyed, which again, I think is cognitive bias and dissonance. But then when you look into who ICE is deporting, is what I'm talking about, and the protests are against ICE deporting people just willy-nilly, basically, you know?
Maybe people are destroying the city because they're pissed off about how they're being treated and how the government's acting.
Which I don't think is necessarily true. That I don't know how many of the protesters themselves are destroying the city. They should be doing peaceful shit, but at the same time you could say that vandalism, if people are spray painting all over the city or burning Waymo cars that are part of the police state, you could consider it destroying the city, sure, but it is a result of the oppression that has been happening to people, right? And let's look through some of the comments, right? This person's trying to attach identity politics to it. Why is it so hard for people to understand that illegally entering the United States is breaking the law? That means that you're literally a criminal. If you want to seek asylum, there are ways to do it. Wait your turn, like every legal immigration. And that's just based on assumption that people have the time or the ability to go through those processes, which some of them don't. It's literally life or death, right? And then I think I replied to this one with a reel, so watch that after, but the caption was, let's say it again in a different way to see if people can get it through their dense craniums. Just trying to flex the vocabulary a little bit there. And this person's just trying to come back and, bro, which protesters are trying to start wildfires? What is this person talking about? No? I agree with this person. Where do y'all come up with this stuff? If cops didn't shoot reporters in the back at peaceful protests, there wouldn't be any violent protesters. Already very few, but whatever, right? This person's trying to reason, saying that, oh, they're destroying police cars, and I say cops are part of the gov. This person's trying to say that, oh, it's the local government, whatever, and then you can just go back to, oh, they're just following orders, right? Like, it's like, nah, bro, that's what the Nazis were saying. Like, fuck that. This person said, ah, yes, can't contest this point. Brings up other issues to make the person you're talking about look bad. Burning a city down to prove a point is outrageously stupid. And I said, how so? I'm talking about the irony of not applying the same thinking to other issues. This person said, because the topic of the conversation is LA and how they're destroying the city, talking about Gaza and whatever side topic. So then I commented and said, check the other vids I made and or reposted on the subject. You know, comment reply vids can only be a minute, right? And then it's the same shit. Like, this person said, bro wants more global intervention wars. And I totally lol. I can't tell if he's talking about this one or me, and yeah, I just said totally, yeah, sarcastically agreeing, but I don't know. This person said, bro, sit down, people are trying to do their jobs, and it's like, alright, let them be slaves then. A slave can only break free of the chains once they realize they're enslaved in the first place, you know. Whether they have shackles on or gold chains in their and diamond teeth, you know what I mean? How about don't cheat and cross the border illegally? Right, and legality is not morality. Like, sure, you can talk about it legally, but morally, are you helping these people, like, get away from danger, right? It's like, put yourself in their shoes. Man, it seems so simple, but, like, how about costing the American taxpayers $1 billion a year? The figure is coming from the government offices, and I said, nice. Right from the mouths of the oppressors themselves. Like, this person tried to get me, like, oh, if you believe in communism and socialism, why don't you live in one of those countries? Why are you in America, a capitalist country? And of course, bro didn't reply to this. I said, I live in Canada, and I believe we should fight fascism from any and everywhere in the world. And bro's like, oh, well, got nothing to say to that. Because people are ignorant. And then an obvious bot account here. Why save when you can spend? Yep, definitely. And this person said, come on, numbnuts, there's a huge difference with illegal and legal immigrants. I said, in a state built on genocide of indigenous people, is there really? This person tried to say indigenous tribes were already killing each other before that. And I said, yeah, and who taught you that? Let me guess, colonial textbooks? You know what I mean? Like, and then you get people like this that say, shut up, homo. Good one. You know, like, this person said nobody gives a shit about the Middle East. Why would they? This post gets a rating level of borderline retard. This person, obviously, you can see here, the name is Angus. I said, could say the same thing about you, Angus. Didn't reply to that, you know? Like, so these are obviously, these are either bots or just genuinely stupid people, you know? If we check my story quick, I feel like that relates to this picture. It says, what really haunts me is I'm really not smart enough for so many people to be this much stupider than me. You know what I mean? And I genuinely feel like that. But let's go through a few of the stories while we're here.
Teach Native American history in school is because America is just our country rebranded. Our founding fathers' teeth weren't even theirs. They rebranded it with slave teeth. It's all a fucking lie.
Chat, is protesting cringe?
I think the protests were incredibly cringe, very boomer, very okay boomer.
Welcome back to Fascist Propaganda 101. Today we're talking about how fascists convince you that caring is cringe. If you were on the internet in the 2010s, one of the worst things that you could be called was an SJW, or a social justice warrior. If you cared about a social justice cause, you became a meme, like the triggered meme, or like Luke Crywalker, a freeze frame of a woman crying out after Trump's first election.
President of the United States of America.
Or of course, how dare you? The joke here is that these people care. That people who are emotionally affected by the world around them are embarrassing.
Now it's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's have some fun.
Or if you care about a cause, it must be disingenuous.
Yeah, I totally sim Hamas. Yeah. It's so trending right now.
In order to create the violent world that they want, fascists need to enforce apathy. They need to convince you to stop caring about other people. Don't take it from me. Take it from this 1935 bulletin from the Nazi Party's Central Propaganda Office. But it is necessary to eliminate thoroughly uncalled for humanitarianism and foolish sympathy. We need to wipe out the sympathy for this element that one still finds in some intellectually deficient brains. Freaks. Mockery is a powerful tool because every time you laugh at someone for caring, your brain learns that if you ever behave that way, people are gonna laugh at you. Mockery creates a cop that lives in your head and polices your behavior.
Take a look at this cringe dance.
Don't dance, don't sing, don't cry, don't care. People might laugh at you. The good news is that there's a really simple way to fight this propaganda. Embrace the cringe and kill the cop that lives inside your head.
And I feel like people might look at what I do to the comments that I get as saying they're cringe, or like, I'm not trying to just point at other people and say, oh, they're cringe, they're dumb. But it's like, because I don't know, I try to treat things genuinely, but there becomes a level of, I don't know, I try to treat things genuinely, but it comes to a level of, if people can't understand or they don't have the mental capability of understanding the conversation about empathy rather than the opposite, apathy, right? I don't know, I try to laugh not to make fun of the other person, but because a lot of the shit is genuinely funny, whether people are trying to hurt my feelings and just come up with some funny shit, or they're genuinely just making jokes because they don't want to actually engage with the conversations that they're having, you know what I mean?
Chat, is protest...
But yeah, I think it is important. But yeah, I think it is important to genuinely have empathy and to care about others, you know, to try and push for more love and unity in the world, but not just say, oh, it's all love and light. Like, you have to look at the darkness too, right? The yin and the yang.
I support protests, but not if they're violent. I support protests, but not if they destroy property. I support protests, but not if they block traffic. I support protests, but you shouldn't be waving that flag. What the fuck do you want? Except we already know what you want. You just want nothing. You just want nothing.
Create all the value, you should collectively own your workplace and the tools of production so that you can reap the full value of your labor. I will fight to end your exploitation and to create a society that serves all of its people, not just the capitalists.
Fuck you! Get the fuck out of here, you piece of shit commie!
Because you as the worker create all the value, because you as the
that is also how I feel a lot of the time, you know, especially with this engagement farming lately and a lot of the bots popping up on my account. But yeah, I am genuinely trying to laugh at it because that's like a funny perspective that feels relatable to me, you know?
Depending on what day you hit me up, I might just be fully talking in cryptic parables. Nigga might ask me what I'm doing, and I'm gonna be like, shit, observing the serpent swallow its own tail.
A park ranger at Yosemite was asked, why is it so hard to design a bear-proof trash can? He said it's because there's considerable overlap between the smartest bears and the dumbest people. And I think about that all the time.
And I'm not looking to turn you guys against all men forever. That's not what I want to do. What I want to show you is a study that was done at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. This is an eyesore, I'm very well aware, but it has a point, I promise. So there's a study done of 1,882 men in college at UMass Boston. There are 1,882 dots on the screen. Let's get some guesses from everyone of how many of these men you think are undetected rapists. Percentage, number, a fraction if you're into it. Let's get some brave souls. How many do you think? Yeah.
At least over half.
You think over half? Okay. Who else? Yeah. 30%. Let's shout it out. Let's get some numbers. 90% right. Okay. I'm gonna tell you guys this. I asked my babe, and she's a therapist. She goes, it has to be like 85%. It's 6.4%. 6%. That's 120 men out of 1,882. 6%. But here's why it feels like it's all men.
And I want to just quickly pause before we keep going here and say that guys hate weird, creepy guys that do fucked up shit like this too, right? It's not just women. I feel like the behavior of the individual should be looked at a lot more than just what gender are they or what sex are they, you know what I mean?
Because of these 120, 76 of them were repeat offenders. Those 76 individuals were responsible for 439 rapes. That's 6 per rapist. But it doesn't stop there, because those rapists were also responsible for sexual assaults, violence against children, sexual violence against children, and domestic violence against intimate partners, which is 1,064.
So as you can see here, these are the people who actually were, you know, had actually committed crimes, right? And then this was the number of offenses those people committed compared to the overall number of men, right? And I think this is important to talk about because I'm really not a fan of the, oh, all men statement. And as you can see, this reinforces that thinking that why are we generalizing any group of people, especially like if there are individuals that commit crimes, we need to look at those individuals and obviously stop them from repeat offending. And I'm sure society would feel and look a lot different, right?
4 victims. That's 14 victims per rapist. Of course, it feels like it's all men. I know this and I'm still scared. But it's not. So I started to ask myself, why? Why does it feel like it's all men? Because if 1 in 10 men are assholes and the other 9 men do nothing, they might as well not be there. So how do we fix that?
And this is why it's so important to speak up against this shit, right?
How do we fix that? This is not your sole responsibility to go gather up a bunch of guys and be like, we're going to talk about rape. But it is our responsibility as women to bring the men that we love and trust into these conversations so they know how to help us when that 1 out of 10 is there. And I'm not looking
right? I think that's an amazing point that they made at the end, and this whole presentation was awesome. And then if this is the person who did that talk, definitely check out their page.
And I'm not.
Kim Jong-un just said that we will respond to any threat against Iran. We warn the mercenaries of global imperialism. Some people might ask, why would a communist country come out in support of Iran, which is not a communist country? And the answer to that is in Lenin's book on imperialism, which argues that capitalism has developed to the stage of imperialism. This means that now there's a whole new dimension of the class struggle that manifests itself between countries struggling against imperialism and imperialist countries. And while this can take many different forms, what is common is the struggle for sovereignty against imperialist encroachment. And that is why a communist state like the DPRK or Cuba or Venezuela, etc. support Iran's struggle against Zionist and US imperialism. It is because imperialism makes the class struggle global, and there's two sides that you can possibly take. Either you're with the forces of resistance to imperialism, or you're with the side of imperialism. As the great American historian Howard Zinn once said, you cannot be neutral on a moving train. Within the country, this means that you can't be neutral in the struggle between the working class and the capitalist class. Globally, this means that you can't be neutral in the struggle of anti-imperialism versus imperialism. This is why it makes complete sense for all socialists and communists to support Iran. Iran is at the front lines of the struggle against Zionism, which is the bulwark of US imperialism in the Middle East. After facing an unjust and unprovoked attack from the white and blue country, now it is retaliating with a level of strength that the white and blue country hasn't seen in decades. Whether you like it or not, this is the form that the anti-imperialist struggle takes. And you can either support it and be on the right side of that split, or you can condemn it because it doesn't look like the pure struggle that you have in your head. This would be operating under what I've called the purity fetish in a lot of my writings. So stand on the right side of history. Stand with the forces fighting back against.
So, as much as I completely agree with what he's saying here, I did drop a comment saying, damn, too bad the irony of a pathocratic fascist leader saying this kind of outweighs the merit, in my opinion. And it's like, yeah, Kim Jong-un and the North Korean government could be in support of Iran, but at the end of the day, are they themselves still oppressing their people with these pathocratic fascist methods, right? But yeah, let's keep going here.
All just people, why did they have to be in uniform to help escort people to school after desegregation? Like, brother, race is a social construct like gender. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 fucking times at this point. We're all made of water and we all bleed the same fucking color. So guess what? I wouldn't need a uniform, but I would still do that. Stand up for people who either can't stand up for themselves or are continuously oppressed and bullied and fucking... Bro, what kind of talking points are you going on? It's fuck all the guys that say, oh, I'm just following orders, I'm just doing whatever, and that they're abusing their positions of power and enforcing fascism. Use your fucking brain if you got one.
And then of course people like this don't even reply to the content of video. They just said, I really don't like you. Why do you keep showing up in my feed? Everything about you annoys me. Or if it's a bot, like, why do I care, you know? Not saying anything to add to the conversation. But yeah, this person is trying to say, oh, the military does good things, they help black kids get to school. It's like, okay, why do you need a uniform? Why does it matter? Why can't we just protect each other in society all the time, no matter what? Seems pretty simple to me.
You just proved your own point. Race is a social construction. So what does it matter the color of the skin of the people at the party? The fact is they are at the party, not actively trying to fight against the fascism and shit that's going on, right? I agree with what you said at the end there, that the rich use shit like race and gender and borders and countries and all this different shit, nationalism, to push their agendas. I agree. But then why say, oh, the people at the party are white? Brother, that's such a stupid way to start that. Just say the rich use race to manipulate us. Forget the rest of it. And besides, I'm thinking most of those people were actually light skin color, but their shade over the venue, which made them look a bit darker, you know? And again...
Which there are 2 black people that you see at the start there, but again, what is race, what is color? They're all just people. And like I said, what the fuck does it matter if they're not just fighting against fascism, right? And I even said, how are you gonna spit facts and contradictions in the same comment, lol? But yeah, if we go back to this quickly, yeah, obviously these two people, this guy might be a little bit dark or whatever, but then most of these people are pretty fair skin tone, I mean? And then the shade over the menu.
Thank you for proving my point again, that they are using Judaism to push their narrative and agenda. When we all know they're Europeans that moved over and changed their names to sound more Jewish, Benjamin Netanyahu and his whole fucking cabinet of Jews, or sorry, Israeli Jews, whatever, Zionist motherfuckers, you know? And I just posted a video recently of a protest of Jewish people with the whole hair and the hats and everything, holding up signs that say they're anti-Israel, holding up Palestinian flags, brother. So, what are you trying to say? You're proving my fucking point. That you're just looking at it as a superficial thing that says, oh yeah, they're Jewish, it's a Jewish nation.
And then he did say in another comment that we're fighting the same fight, so I think him and I are on the same page, but spitting facts there, you know. But let's see what else. We can go through these a little bit quicker here.
Again, people have free will to do whatever they want. This just reinforces the caption of the video I reposted that I said, ignorance is bliss. Like, people can choose to do whatever they want with their life, but I'm going to actively fight against the wrong I see in the world, you know? I'll admit, it is frustrating that other people don't feel the same way, but I'm not telling anyone how to live their life. I'm just engagement farming, so thank you for the comment.
I am looking at the world saying, oh, we could be doing things differently, but I'm not trying to act like, I guess in a way I am saying that we should be fighting against oppression and fascism, whatever, but that doesn't even have to be actively going out and protesting, just like being more open-minded, being more like egalitarian, community focused, focusing on the people who do the work instead of the people who just sit there and tell you what to do, you know what I mean? I thought this was pretty funny. The cartel might let you hit, bro. Dope. And then I think this sums it up pretty good here. Bro thinks he's making an impact, and I said, and as I replied, as the Chinese farmer says, maybe. You know, there is no good and bad, it's just things happening. And you can see more bots, like cops and the feds right now. This meme account's been commenting a decent amount on my stuff lately. You need to understand there's a difference between ignorance and not caring. We support illegals being deported. Same thing, no? Not even close. Ignorance means not knowing or understanding about it. Not caring is not caring about it at all. Like I know every aspect about what's going on with the illegals, and I care absolutely nothing for the situation and want them deported. Okay? So I said, damn, how mature of you. Pathetic, right? Both to say you know everything about an issue as well as not caring at all about other people, other versions of yourself. You do you, lil bro, keep grinding on that meme page. Person, he tried to come back and say, I'm probably older than you, there's not too much to know, people came in illegally and that's all he's focusing. Whatever. Totally, because the number of years alive equates to your level of maturity and understanding. Whatever you say, lil bro. Thanks for the engagement. Like, and then yeah, a lot of these would be kind of redundant to go over because I'm more or less saying the same thing annoyingly. Because people don't want to listen or go check out the page and engage with conversations on a deeper level. They just want to feel right. We can go to this one now.
So this is what I mean by the protests are peaceful until the police arrive. All these people out here chanting, just making their presence known. Peacefully protesting.
Let's go. That's what we like to see. That's why I say it's fuck the gov and the 1% that's funding, man.
So this is what I mean.
Right. Great vid showing peaceful protests. And guess what? There were none of there. No cops, no feds, bro. We can keep going to some of the other stitches or reposts.
MAGA alpha males love telling people they're not triggered by anything in a 10,000 word essay in my comments section. MAGA alpha.
And then instead of doing 10,000 words, they just went to the shortest form possible. And let's keep going though. You can see this one got decent engagement here. But yeah, you know, I don't necessarily agree with going on to the interstate, but if that's what was going on and they had the cop cruisers pulling up and then people destroyed them and they couldn't get any traffic through anyways, why the fuck not, you know? If it's not danger because the highway's already shut down anyways, like, fuck it, why not, right? But then I find it interesting that people like this want to drop literally 10,000 words in the fucking comments, and I try to reply and talking to them and sending them DMs, which I never replied to, offering them to come on my podcast and talk to me face to face. And then, look, I reply, and it says it's protesting against fascism and abuse of power, but good try, right? Person said, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, which you could argue the government's doing. And then I just said, oh yeah, keep modeling for your followers, because it's just a bunch of fucking selfies. And then, yeah, there's no point in trying to have a conversation with them. Like, I don't know, bro. And then I went in and, yeah, I said, check your DMs, because I sent them a message and nothing back. So obviously they don't really want to have conversations about this shit. They just want to yap and talk their shit, right? Basically this. People are dropping comments and it's just like, okay, uno reverse, bro. Say the same thing about yourself. I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say bounce off of me, sticks to you, you know? Or the, I know you are, but what am I? Could literally just say that to all this shit, you know what I mean? And here's another one showing before and after police and troops showed up, you know. Pretty peaceful before that, right? Just walking, chilling, and then tear gas starts getting hot and all this other shit.
Legality is not morality, right? Legally, you can say yes, just entering the border illegally without having the papers or proper due process, whatever, can be considered illegal and you could be thrown out of a country for it. Okay, fair enough. Morally, why are we not purposely going for criminals first rather than just mom and pop shop owners or kids at their graduations? There's a big difference between people coming into a country and committing crime and getting deported because of that and what we see going on right now with ICE in the States. Now they have escalated to removing people from the country or sending them to prisons or camps, whatever, without due process, without checking if they're criminals, just based on the color of their skin? What? Do you see where the issues arise when only looking at legality and not morality as well? Well, legality is not
right, and as you can see from the caption, willing to have anyone come on my podcast and talk more about this stuff. In my opinion, the video comment replies get kind of monotonous and redundant at a certain point if I'm saying the same things over and over again to different people, right? That's why I'm just doing this YouTube video. And then getting up here to the top, the most recent one I posted. This is a stitch to this video. It says, unpopular opinion. If you can get someone fired for their opinion, you are the oppressor, not the oppressed. And it's like, okay, whatever this person says, right? Yeah, maybe they deleted their comment because they didn't want the heat. Saying, oh, how is Trump a fascist, whatever. And it's like, bro, what do you mean? But try checking my page for the other shit. I'll be sure to go into this. Talking about my YouTube vid, so I guess that's why they took the comment down, because I didn't want to be in the vid, maybe? But considering Trump's a narcissist and apathetic psychopath means he's more likely to lean towards nationalism, militarism, and trying to get complete control over the stage, which he talks about with running for a third term. I could go on, but it's boring repeating myself all the time. I agreed with this person though, freedom, right? Freedom of speech is not freedom from consequences. But I feel like there's a level where, I feel like I said this to somebody else, where freedom of speech can be more harmful than beneficial to society if the ideas that the person is talking about are ignorant or not true, right? But yeah, as you can see from the comments and all the engagement on the post, I try to be open to having conversations and not just laughing at people or calling them names or whatever. But it gets to a level of like, why would I interact with these people who don't genuinely want to interact with me, right? Like I said, I'll say it again. I'm willing to have anybody on my podcast, the Shit Shooting Gallery, which you can find in the description, or I'll link it under the eye icon, where I will talk to anybody about anything. And if you want to go more in depth about this topic, ICE, the states in general, fascism, communism, whatever it is, like, I'm willing to talk about it, but people have to be willing to have a conversation with nuance and respect, rather than just dropping comments and not wanting to truly engage, which is why they're bots, right? And I'm sure some people might say like, oh, why even platform these people? Why even show the accounts or whatever? And it's just like, I don't know, it gets to a level where I'm trying to be real and authentic. I've never had this much engagement on my profile before, but it's unfortunate, like I said at the beginning, that the engagement farming comes with a lot of weeding through bots and trolls and just people who don't genuinely care about the things you're posting. They're just either trying to be right with cognitive bias and dissonance, not knowing what they're talking about, or they just have so much ego that they're not even willing to be wrong about their own thoughts and opinions. You know what I mean? I guess you're willing to have a thought. I guess everybody has the right to their opinion, but not every opinion deserves respect, right? Especially if you're talking about division or just like supporting people because of legal reasons, but not looking into the morality of things. You know what I mean? Like, I hope people can wake up sooner than later to the fact that we're all made of water. We're all made of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, some of the most abundant particles in the universe. We are it as it is us, and we are the universe experiencing itself. We are different versions of the whole, just like super fractalized versions of it, right? But yeah, I can see I've been recording for an hour and 40 minutes on this recording, and I have some other ones that I did before that I need to chop up and edit together. So we'll see how long this video comes out to at the end, but I hope there was some valuable information in here, or this helped you either see a different point of view, or kind of understand how the world works a bit better, maybe, I don't know. In a way, just trying to keep the engagement farming going and trying to get more views and attention on not only my page, but the shit that truly matters in life, right? Like, sure, people can talk about being activists and all that shit, but if you're not actually talking about the issues or trying to actively fight against the pathocrats or the fascists or the people in power that are oppressing everyone below them, what are you truly doing, right? Like I said in one of my songs, if it ain't bold, then what the fuck's the point of it, you know? But yeah, that being said, I'll leave this one here for now. If you want to hear my music, my link tree will be in the description, and you can find my music on all platforms. But other than that, if you want to see more of my videos, you can check out my channel and subscribe while you're there. Not only to help us build the community, but then you never miss a new video, especially if you hit the bell icon to get notifications. But yeah, like I said, I'll leave this one here for now. I appreciate you watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Like I say in all my videos, I love you. Stay safe, good luck, and take it easy.